Okay, everybody, we are going to do a quick review of the programming exam on basic Java that you took yesterday. We will look at how to tackle each of the steps that you are supposed to do. So, first of all, let's open the sandbox, and in the sandbox, let's create a comment for every step that we need to do. So, the first step talked about like you have to ask for the name of the user. In this case, since we are using the Java console will allow us to use an input message for the user. So we just create a string and it says string name. And in the string name, we are going to use the read line syntax that says. So in order to create this condition, we have to create a while loop, a while true that will create the or ask for the condition every time. Okay, so in this case, we are going to initialize the steps first. Okay, we initialize the steps. Basically, we're just saying that steps are going to start in 0, and that's what the first condition or the initial condition. Remember that you can only declare variables once. You can't declare them, or it will be a duplicate variable and you would get an error. Okay, so we have steps equal to 0, and now we're going to create a while true function or while true structure where we are going to create all of our conditions. So basically, the while true is going to say, okay, you're going to do this until the next thing happens. So let's create an if statement. I'm going to leave this right there. So I'm going to say if steps, okay, if steps are less than 0, okay, and steps are greater, sorry, if steps are greater than 0, of course, and steps are less than 1,000, 100,000, then in this case, like the condition is met, like this is correct. If it's correct, it is going to break out of this loop. Okay, so if this is true, I am going to break out of the loop, out of the while loop. It's going to like go out of the while loop and continue with the program as intended. But if this is not happening, then we need to ask for the steps again and show a message, please enter amount of steps today. So this loop will actually create a condition that if the condition is met, I mean it's greater than 0 and less than 100,000, it will break and continue with the program. Otherwise, it will continue in the loop until steps are met. Let's see if this actually works. So basically, we're going to ask for the name and say what it does. And it says, please enter amount of steps today. So let's write down the steps. Okay. And let's say 300,000. It will continue asking for the steps today. Let's say a minus sign, a minus number, a negative number. It will continue asking for the amount of steps today. Let's give it a number that is correct. Let's say 50 steps. It will enter and continue and break out of the loop. Okay, that's what we want. Okay. So after we continue, we have made this other one. So this is number 2. So we have number 1 ready. We have number 2 ready. We have 1. We have 2. Now let's go to step number 3. Step number 3 says ask about the minutes of exercise per day. Now here we use a little bit of arithmetic operations and we use also a boolean. So here it says just store the amount of minutes of exercise in an int variable. So basically we are going to create an int variable called minutes, workout in minutes. And here we will ask again for an integer that says enter the amount of minutes of exercise. Okay, basically that is what it is. You guys can change this prompt. It doesn't matter. This is not really important. It's just like for entering the minutes. And that's it. You got number 4 ready. And we're heading to, you got number 3 ready. Now you are heading to number 4. And number 4 says convert the minutes to hours. Now here, this is also very simple. So as you can see, it doesn't take much time. It's just like understanding what you need to do. Now in the 4th, where it says convert the minutes to hours, it says convert the minutes to hours by dividing the minutes by 60. So here I'm going to create an hours, and hours have to be a double because you would probably, when you do the operation, you will get less than an hour, or you would get a decimal number. So in this case, you need to divide the minutes by 60 and store it in a double number. Now, remember that minutes is an integer number. In Java, when you have an integer number divided by an integer number, it doesn't matter if you try to get a decimal, you will always get an integer. So integer divided by integer will give you integer. So in that case, it will just eliminate all the decimal numbers. So the importance of casting is crucial. You need to cast one of the variables to a double in order to get a double answer. So in this case, I cast this to a double, and I'm saying, okay, minutes it's an integer, but I want to cast it to a double. So when I operate with this number, I will get a double. Or you can also add 0.0 to the 60, and now this number turns into a double. So either way, one or both, you will get the double answers. Now I'm going to print right away just to check if this works. I'm going to print the hours and see how much I get. Okay, so here I am going to see if the casting and the conversion works. Okay, it also says round to the nearest whole number, so we will check that in a minute. So please enter your name really quick, enter the amount of steps, and let's say we did 2,200 steps, and basically enter the amount of minutes of exercise. And here the minutes of exercise would be, let's say we did around 2 hours, so 125 minutes. So here you get 2.08333. Now you are getting a decimal number, and this is really good. Now it is our job to round it to the nearest whole number. Okay, in this case it would be 2. How do you round? You just create double hours, and you will add 0.5, and of course cast it to an integer value. So I'm going to add 0.5 to hours and then cast it to an integer value, and then I get the rounding. Okay, now just to validate, we are going to print the new hours, and we're going to print it in a way that we know that this is the rounded version, rounded hours. And here we're going to concatenate it with the new hours. Remember that we already we changed the value. So we added 0.5 to hours, and then we cast it to an integer. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. Remember that in order to cast, you need the parentheses, just so we can cast it from one variable type to another. Okay? Basically, let's check how the program works to this point. okay, we have a problem here. So we already defined hours. Oh, we're defining hours and hours. So this is a very interesting error that happens a lot. You cannot duplicate variables. Remember, variables cannot be duplicated. So we have hours and hours. We have the name. Then please enter amount of steps. We have 2,100 steps. And we have the enter amount of minutes, 125. And as you can see, we get, first of all, our double or decimal version of the amount of hours. And then we rounded, and it rounded to 2. And that is correct. It's supposed to be rounded to 2. Okay? Now, let's continue with our next step. In this case, it's number 5. And number 5 says, okay, let's calculate and display the activity score. The activity score is, okay, you will be creating a conditional statement that calculates all the activity score. So we've talked about like casting, a little bit of arithmetic operations. We also have little conditionals right here, and we also have loop and a half, like how to break out of a loop. So these are very important topics that we have covered until now. Now, calculate and display the activity score with a certain amount of, with a formula. So the score, and here we have it like in score, it's going to be the steps, right, divided by 1,000. And then we are going to add the hours times 2. This would be the score. That's it. We just print out the score, just so we know. Or the score is, your score is. And we have score, and let's see how this works. Remember, steps divided by 1,000, steps, this, if you look at steps, it's an integer number. Hours is a double, okay? But this operation will give me an integer number, okay? This operation will give me a double. Now, what I need, if I want to be very precise, is that I need that this operation, which is an integer by an divided by an integer, is actually a double divided by an integer, or a double divided by a double. Remember, you need the operation to have at least a double. So I'm going to fix it very easily by adding 0.0 to 1,000, and now it's a double. Now everything will be a double. And we're going to have a problem because you will not be able, this will not be able to be placed in the int. So if you want a double to be stored in an integer value, then you need to cast to an int. Otherwise, you can't store a double inside an int. You can the other way around. An integer is part of a double, okay? Kind of like with real numbers or with rational numbers, okay? A rational number is also part of integers. Okay, so let's see how the program works for number 5. And here I have a missing a semicolon. Syntax errors are usually very easy to fix and to debug. Here I have another error. It says there are incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from double to an int. Okay, so here I'm casting steps divided by 1,000. Yeah, in this case, this plus sign is not inside the formula. Okay, so let me explain again. If we take out this casting and we run the program, we're going to see that we are also going to get probably an error because it says, okay, this portion of the code, or this portion is a double, this portion is a double, and it says that it's an incompatible type. Okay? Now, if we take this, and now we have an int divided by an int, and then we have a double, and we're going to store it in an int. Okay? So Java is very, very rigorous about this. Like you need to have the same variable type stored one in another. So in this case, this part over here is a double. So what if we cast this into an int? Now this side of the equation has an int, this has an int, and it should be stored in an int. So let's see if it actually works. Now it compiles correctly, and let's say if it gives us the score that we want. Now we have that the rounded hours is 2 and your score is 6. Okay, very good. Now that after we've done with this, let's go with number 6. Number 6 says use if statements to provide feedback. I'm going to show you how to comment like a multi-line comment. If you want to do a multi-line comment, you just create the slash asterisk. I'm going to show you right here, slash asterisk. And then in order to finish, you need asterisk slash. Okay, so the instructions say that if the score is less than 5, you need more movement today. If it's between 5 and 10 included, it's a good job. And if it's more than 10, excellent, very active. So here we have to create a conditional statement that has 3 conditions. Now, there are 2 ways of doing conditional statements. Either creating all the Boolean expression inside the if statement or creating a nested if statement. In our case, we're going to try to write down all the statements in a single one. So, what is the first condition? Let's say if score, which we already have, is greater than 10, okay, right? We will say that this is a good job. So if score is greater than 10, then we are going to print out excellent. So I'm using the upper bound of the if statement. So we have very active. So we need an else if, okay? What happens if the score is not greater than 10? If it's not greater than 10, then the possibility is that it's between 5 and 10. So else if, and else if is a very important way of writing conditions because it obligates the algorithm to enter the other one if the first one is not met. So else if score is greater than or equal than 5 because it's included, and score is less or equal than 10. Now, this condition is an expression. It's a Boolean expression. You say score, it's greater or equal than 5, which is the condition, and score is less or equal than 10. Okay? If these 2 conditions are met, then in that case we will have the second condition to print, which is good job. Okay. Finally, we have if the score is less than 5. Okay? If the score is less than 5, you need more movement today. So, in any other situation, for me, if the score is if it's not greater than 10, if it's not between this, if it's anywhere lower than this, 5, so in that case, the else statement is any other situation. you don't need to write the condition less than 5, because if the first one is not met and the second one is not met, this means that any other situation, even negative numbers, which is impossible to get because the score is never going to be negative, but any other situation, just say system.out.println and say you need more movement today. Okay, so basically we need to understand that this is called a nested conditional statement. We have 1, 2 conditions, and the else means what happens in any other condition if it doesn't meet the first 2. Okay, this is very important because you need the if, the else if, and the else statement. Sometimes you don't need to create an else statement. For example, what we did in the first one, when we did the while loop, if this happens, then break. If not, like continue. So we don't have an else. We just, the program leaves this structure, continues on the next line, and then it will continue looping. So sometimes an else if or an else are not necessary. This is when you need specific conditions to be met. Okay, and we're done with number 6. Okay, now let's head on to number 7. Number 7 says use a for loop to simulate the progress bar. This was just like a simulation. Some of you were kind of like a little bit like confused with this, but it's not difficult. It's just creating a loop to simulate the progress bar, and just a system.out.println using a for loop. So I'm going to use a for loop that simulates the progress bar, and in that case I'm just going to kind of like print out like hashtags until I get to 100, and then at the end I'll just put 100, right? So for int I equals 0 to I less than 10, because I'm going to do 10 iterations for 10 hashtags, I will do it 10 times. So this is how you declare the for loop. Remember that a for loop has a start point, an end point, and an increment. This is extremely important. Every single for loop has a start point, end point, and increment. It can like increase or decrease. Like this is the way that the iteration moves on. Okay, and that condition can be by 1, by 2s, or however you want it to do. Okay, we always declare the variable first. This is extremely important. And I'm just gonna type in print, and I'm going to use print in this case because I wanted to print right there on the same line. So I'm just going to type in the hashtag. Okay, and then at the end, right at the end, after it finishes the loop, I'll say, okay, we have 100%. This is like the calculation. Okay, let's see how this is going to work right now and see if we get the progress bar running. Okay, so let's type in our name. We have the amounts of steps, 2,250. We exercised for about 255 minutes. And it says, okay, rounded hours, your score is 10, good job, because it's 10 included, so it's working fine. And now I have the progress bar, meaning that it's calculating. Oh, we can also add calculating. Okay, we can say, okay, before the loop, we can say system.out.println, say calculating. And that way we have the calculating also before the hashtags, and then until it reaches the 100%. So we have 10 hashtags right there. And we're done with number 7, see? And it's only been less than 25 minutes. So we're going to number 8, which just, it says add a while loop to ask if they want to check in another day. Okay, now basically this is a while loop that kind of like uses loop and a half. So every time that the person starts the program, at the end, it should ask, okay, do you want to continue? Do you want to add another day? Okay. So here we have to create, first of all, the last message saying, do you want to add another day? And here we need to make sure that whatever we're doing, like after the person writes down if they want yes or no, this has to be something that has to start at the very beginning of the program, okay? So we're going to create another loop that grabs this whole loop, and then kind of like that is the condition. So remember that I told you that there was a condition in order to continue if the steps were greater than 0, less than 100,000. Now we need a condition just that if it's yes or no, if a variable it's yes or no. Okay. So in that case, we're going to go all the way up, right? We're going to go all the way up. And right after the steps, I need a variable, okay? That is, this variable is accepts just the day or another day. And I'm going to say that it accepts another day. So we type in yes, because that would be the initial value. So yes is the initial value. This is the initial value that is needed to accept another day. Okay? And here comes the tricky part. We have to create another while true, okay, condition. This while true condition is, okay, the variable is yes, it enters the while true, and it's going to keep here, and it's only going to break if accepts is equal to no. Okay? So, if, now this is the condition, if accepts, okay, dot equals, and this is a method that you guys learned in strings, okay, the string portion of our CodeHS practice. If accepts, it's equals to yes, okay? If this is true, then it will do all this, okay? Okay? So, if this is equal to yes, then I need, I'm going to just move everything a little bit to the right so you guys can see the indentation. So if accept is equal to yes, then it's going to do all this. And I'm going to close it right over here. Okay? So here we go. If accept is equal to yes, it will do all this. It's kind of like, I really like this because I can minimize everything that it's in it. If accept is equal to yes, I minimize it, okay? Fine. Otherwise, or else, if this happens, like, what if the person says else or anything different, like else or I don't think so or no or like anything different from yes, you will break out of the loop. So this is kind of like how the program looks like. So if it's accepts is equal to yes, it will come in and do the whole program. Okay? This is kind of like how it works. Else, it will break and leave the program. Okay? So let's see if it works. Of course, if it's yes, the first time it will enter because we created the the first or the initial value of accepts. Now, let's see if this works. Okay, so we have our first syntax error or debugging, and it looks like we are missing one of the curly brackets. So in this case, let's revise. So we have public, and this is really important because this is why it was so important our indentation and organizing our software, because sometimes we need to verify that we have an extra curly bracket or we're missing a curly bracket. So let's verify together how this looks like. So the public void run, okay, so we have the public class. This should be all the way to the left, and this one should be like closed with another one. So I am going to move all this while true. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move it a little bit to the right, just so I know exactly what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to move this just a little bit so I can see the public run. So I have the public class, and this curly bracket, if you see the line, should be closed at the bottom. Okay, so it should be closed right here. We'll see where we can put it. We have the public run, and this public run, if we go all the way down, should be closed right here. Like, this is just for organizational purposes, like so we can look nice and pretty, and we know that we can verify that everything is working perfect. Now we have a while true. This while true, it looks like all this like block of code should be closed here. You see, I'm missing a few. There we go. We have a few missing. And finally, we have the if yes. This if yes should be closed when the program closes, and the else, then we have the else breaks, and then we have everything inside. So now it's nice and indented and it's organized. We have made sure that our program will work. I mean, hopefully. Now, if we check the indentation, let's see if we can check it again, verify anything is missing, and now it has compiled. Let's see if it works. Let's do a trial. So we have, please enter amount of steps. Let's say 2,560, and the number of minutes of exercise, let's say 321, and we have 5.35, the rounded hours. Your score is 12. Excellent, very active. We did the calculating progress. Do you want to add another day? And it says that, do you want to add another day, but automatically jump to enter the amount of minutes of exercise. This means that we did not update the variable accepts. Okay? So we're missing right over here. Do you want to add another day? Here, we're going to change this line of code for an update to the variable accepts. So accepts will be equal to read line, right? And now, do you want to add another day? Now, instead of just printing, do you want to add another day, it will wait for the person to write yes or no, and then update the variable, and that way we can break. We're going to try it one more time. I'm going to try it one more time. Enter the name, enter the amount of steps, 2,560, and we have enter amount of minutes, let's say 128 minutes. And then it says, okay, your score is 6. Good job calculating. Do you want to add another day? Now, it's waiting for me to say yes or no. If I say yes, it should enter right back in. There you go. Enter amount of minutes. Now, let's say 325 and the amount of minutes of exercise. And then it will give us absolutely everything again. And if I say no, then the program will break, and the only thing we're missing from this is the public run. Right after the while, when it breaks out of this while, I'm going to say, okay, a message saying, have a nice day. And this would be the final message, a goodbye message. Okay, guys, so basically this was the exam. This was the whole exam. We took about 30 minutes, and I think you guys, like, if you could have done this a lot faster, The important thing is that you know exactly what you want to do. This is the most important thing. Okay? Please use this as a test correction and use this for studying for our January or our next unit, which is methods. Okay, we're gonna turn every single program in and turn it into like different chunks of sub programs or methods. Okay.